the foothills of the Himalayas more than 2,500 years ago, a child was born into extraordinary privilege and comfort. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, and he would one day become known simply as the Buddha, the awakened one. But tonight, we begin not with his awakening, but with his beginning. We begin with a young prince, sheltered within palace walls, surrounded by beauty and luxury, yet destined to walk a path that would illuminate the nature of existence itself. Imagine, if you will, the kingdom of the Shakyas, nestled between the mountains and the fertile plains of what we now call Nepal. The palace of Siddhartha's father, King Suddhodana, rose magnificently from the landscape, its courtyards filled with flowering trees, its halls adorned with silks and precious things. Here, the young prince grew in an environment carefully constructed to contain only pleasure, only beauty, only the gentle aspects of human life. Siddhartha's father, it is said, loved his son deeply and wished to protect him from all suffering. Astrologers had predicted that the boy would become either a great king or a great spiritual teacher, and the king, hoping to secure the former destiny, resolved to shield his son from any encounter with pain, sickness, aging, or death. And so the palace became a beautiful prison, a garden of earthly delights designed to make the young prince never wish to leave, never question, never seek anything beyond its perfumed walls. The boy grew into a young man of remarkable sensitivity and intelligence. He married a beautiful princess named Yashodhara. He had a son, Rahula. He was trained in all the arts befitting a prince: music, philosophy, martial skills, statecraft. He lived, by all external measures, a perfect life. The gardens bloomed in endless succession, musicians played, dancers moved like silk in wind. Every comfort was provided, every desire anticipated and fulfilled. Yet something stirred within him. Some questions, quiet but persistent, began to form in the depths of his awareness. What lay beyond these walls? What was the nature of the lives lived by those who did not dwell in palaces? What truths were being kept from him, and why? These questions grew like seeds in dark earth, slowly, inevitably pushing toward light. And so we find ourselves at the threshold of a journey, at the moment before everything changes. We stand with Siddhartha in his 29th year, comfortable yet restless, privileged yet curious, surrounded by beauty yet sensing somehow that this beauty was incomplete, that something essential was missing from this carefully curated existence. The palace walls, once protective, began to feel confining. The pleasures once satisfying began to feel hollow, and in this growing restlessness the path toward awakening began to form, like a road appearing slowly through morning mist. Let yourself settle into this story, into this ancient beginning. Let the image of the palace gardens relax your mind. The flowering trees, the gentle fountains, the young prince walking slowly through paths designed for his contentment. Feel the warm air of that distant place and time, carrying the scent of jasmine and roses. There is no hurry in this story. We have all the time we need to walk this path together, to follow Siddhartha from his beginning toward his awakening, and perhaps in following his journey to find our own path toward peace and understanding. Breathe slowly, settle deeply, and let us continue together into this ancient wisdom. The turning point came, as such moments often do, unexpectedly. Siddhartha asked his charioteer, Channa, to take him beyond the palace grounds, into the city where ordinary people lived their lives. And on these excursions, these simple journeys into the world beyond the walls, Siddhartha encountered what would become known as the 4 sights, the 4 encounters that would shatter his sheltered existence and set him on the path to awakening. On the first journey, he saw an old person, bent with age, skin wrinkled and thin, moving slowly and with difficulty. Siddhartha had never witnessed aging before. In the palace, only the young and healthy were permitted to remain in his presence. He turned to Channa in confusion and concern. What is this? What has happened to this person? And Channa, unable to maintain the deception any longer, explained simply, "This is age. This comes to everyone. This will come to you, my prince. This is the nature of human life." The words settled into Siddhartha's consciousness like stones dropping into still water, creating ripples that would never fully cease. He returned to the palace, but the music sounded different now. The beauty seemed fragile, temporary. He had glimpsed a truth that could not be unseen. On the second journey, he encountered a person afflicted with illness, suffering from disease, lying by the roadside in pain. Again, he had never witnessed such a thing. Again, he asked Channa to explain. And again, the simple truth was offered. This is sickness. It can come to anyone, at any time. No one is immune. Your youth and health are not permanent protections. This too is part of life. Another layer of understanding settled upon him. Another veil lifted from his carefully sheltered perception of existence. The palace felt increasingly unreal. A beautiful dream from which he was slowly, inevitably waking. On the third journey, he witnessed death itself, a funeral procession, a body being carried to cremation, mourners weeping and wailing in grief. The finality of it, the inescapable nature of it. Death, Channa explained quietly, comes to every living being without exception. Everything that is born will die. Everyone you love will one day be gone. This is not a punishment or an aberration. This is simply the way of all things. Siddhartha sat in silence on the return journey. 3 truths now lived in his awareness: aging, sickness, death. The fundamental vulnerabilities of human existence, the experiences his father had tried so desperately to hide from him. And with these truths came a profound question. If life contains such suffering, such inevitable loss and pain, is there any meaning to it? Is there any way to live with peace in the face of these realities? Or is life simply a movement from pleasure to pain, from birth to death, without purpose or resolution? But there was a 4th sight, and this one offered a different kind of teaching. On another journey, Siddhartha saw a wandering ascetic, a spiritual seeker who had renounced worldly life to search for deeper truth. The ascetic's robes were simple, his possessions few, yet his face held something Siddhartha had not seen in the palace. A quality of calm, of composure, of peace that seemed to come from within rather than from external circumstances. Here, perhaps, was a possibility. Here was evidence that the suffering he had witnessed might not be the final word, that there might be some understanding, some insight, some way of being that could meet the realities of aging, sickness, and death without despair. And in that moment, Siddhartha's path became clear. He would leave the palace. He would renounce his privilege and comfort. He would become a seeker himself, wandering and searching until he found the answers to these profound questions about suffering and the possibility of peace. And so, in the depth of night, Siddhartha made his choice. He took one last look at his sleeping wife and infant son, feeling the weight of what he was leaving, the love and the loss intertwined. Then, quietly, he departed from the palace with Channa, riding through the darkness toward a completely unknown future. When they reached the edge of the kingdom's lands, Siddhartha did something profound and symbolic. He took out his sword and cut off his long hair, the mark of his princely status. He exchanged his fine robes for simple cloth. He sent Channa and the horse back to the palace, and he walked forward alone into the forest, into the life of a wandering seeker. For 6 years, Siddhartha practiced extreme asceticism. He studied with the greatest spiritual teachers of his time, mastering their meditation techniques and philosophical systems. He fasted until his body became skeletal, pushing himself to the very edge of survival, believing that perhaps through punishing the body, through denying every physical comfort and need, he might break through to some ultimate truth. He sat in painful postures for days. He reduced his food to single grains of rice. He became so thin, it is said, that when he touched his stomach, he could feel his spine. But even this extreme path did not bring him the answers he sought. The meditation states he achieved, while profound, were temporary. The physical austerity weakened his body without clarifying his mind. He realized gradually that this too was an extreme, and that just as the extreme of luxury in the palace had not revealed truth, neither did the extreme of self-mortification in the forest. There had to be another way, a middle path between indulgence and denial, between comfort and punishment. One day, weakened nearly to death from fasting, Siddhartha accepted a bowl of rice milk from a young woman named Sujata. As he ate, allowing nourishment to return to his body, he understood something essential. The body is not the enemy. Comfort is not the obstacle. The path to understanding required a balanced approach, one that neither indulged nor denied the basic needs of human existence. His fellow ascetics, seeing him eat, believed he had given up the quest and abandoned him in disappointment. But Siddhartha was not giving up. He was in fact on the verge of breaking through. He walked to a large fig tree near the village of Bodh Gaya, spread a simple grass mat beneath its broad branches, and sat down. And as he settled into meditation posture, he made a profound resolve. I will not rise from this spot until I have found the answers I seek. I will sit here however long it takes until I understand the nature of suffering and the path to liberation. I will not move until I have awakened. Imagine him there beneath that tree that would come to be known as the Bodhi tree, the tree of awakening. The sun setting behind the leaves, the air growing cool, the sounds of the forest settling into evening, birds calling, leaves rustling, insects beginning their nighttime songs. And Siddhartha sitting perfectly still, turning his attention inward with complete determination and complete surrender, ready to face whatever truths arose, ready to see reality as it actually is, beneath all the layers of assumption and desire and fear. Let yourself breathe slowly as we approach this moment. Feel the stillness of it, the simplicity of it. One person, one tree, one profound question. What is the nature of existence, and is there a way to live without suffering? The answer was coming, rising from the depths of consciousness like dawn approaching from beyond the horizon. The long journey from palace to forest, from privilege to renunciation, from extreme to extreme had brought Siddhartha to this perfect simplicity, just sitting, just breathing, just being present to what is. The meditation deepened as night fell. Siddhartha sat motionless beneath the Bodhi tree, his awareness becoming increasingly refined, increasingly clear. The traditional accounts speak of this night in terms of 3 watches, 3 phases of deepening insight that led, finally, to complete awakening. In the first watch of the night, Siddhartha's mind grew calm and concentrated, settling like muddy water, gradually becoming clear. As his awareness steadied, memories began to arise. Not just from this life, but according to the tradition, from countless previous lives. He saw the patterns repeating, lives upon lives, each one moving through the same cycles of birth, aging, death, and rebirth. Each life seeking happiness, seeking security, yet each one eventually dissolving into impermanence. He understood in this deep seeing the vast scope of existence, the endless turning of the wheel of birth and death that continues until awakening breaks the pattern. But this was only the beginning. In the second watch of the night, his insight deepened further. He began to perceive what is sometimes called the divine eye, the ability to see how beings everywhere are born and die according to their actions, their karma. He saw the connection between cause and effect, the way that actions rooted in ignorance, greed, and hatred lead to suffering, while actions rooted in wisdom, generosity, and compassion lead to peace. He understood that suffering is not arbitrary, not punishment from some external force, but a natural consequence of not seeing reality clearly, of acting from confusion and craving rather than from wisdom and understanding. The patterns became clear to him, the way that grasping at pleasure creates the very suffering we seek to avoid, the way that resisting pain amplifies it, the way that our fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of existence keeps us trapped in cycles of dissatisfaction, always seeking, never fully finding, always becoming, never fully being. And then, in the third watch of the night, as dawn began to approach, Siddhartha's insight reached its completion. He saw directly and completely the fundamental nature of all existence. He saw the arising and passing of all phenomena, the constant flux and flow of all experience. He understood impermanence not as a concept, but as a living reality, perceiving directly how everything that arises also ceases, how nothing remains fixed or permanent, how all formations are inherently unstable and unsatisfactory when we try to grasp them as solid or lasting. And in seeing this impermanence completely, he also saw the nature of suffering and its cause. Suffering arises, he understood, from trying to hold on to that which is inherently changing, from building our sense of self and security on foundations that are constantly shifting. We suffer because we crave permanence in a universe characterized by change. We suffer because we desire fixed identity in a reality of constant transformation. We suffer because we don't see things as they are. But in that same moment of seeing the cause of suffering, he also saw its cessation. If suffering arises from craving and clinging in the face of impermanence, then the ending of that craving and clinging brings the ending of suffering. It is possible to live in peace, even in a world of change. It is possible to experience life fully without grasping, It is possible to be free. As the morning star appeared in the lightning sky, Siddhartha's awakening completed itself. The one who had been the sheltered prince, the extreme ascetic, the determined seeker, now became simply the Buddha, the awakened one, the one who sees clearly, the one who understands, the one who has found the peace that lies beyond all grasping and resisting. He sat for some time in the afterglow of this awakening, resting in the profound freedom he had discovered. The journey was complete. The answers he had sought for 6 years of searching, for 29 years of unconscious questioning, had revealed themselves not as complex philosophical systems, but as simple, direct seeing of what is. And everything had changed, and nothing had changed. The tree was still the tree. The dawn was still the dawn. But the one who sat beneath the tree, watching the dawn, was no longer bound by confusion or fear. He was awake. And this awakening, this seeing, would become the foundation of all that we now call Buddhist philosophy. For 7 weeks, the Buddha remained in the vicinity of the Bodhi tree, savoring the freedom of his awakening. He sat in meditation. He walked slowly back and forth. He stood gazing at the tree that had sheltered his breakthrough. He was in no hurry. The urgent seeking had ended. Now there was simply this profound peace, this clear seeing, this freedom from the compulsive grasping that had driven his previous existence. But a question arose, we are told, in the Buddha's mind. Should I teach what I have discovered? The truth he had realized was subtle, profound, difficult to express in words. It went against the grain of ordinary thinking, which seeks permanence and solid ground. It required a radical shift in understanding, a willingness to see beyond comfortable assumptions. Would anyone understand? Would anyone benefit? Perhaps, he thought, it would be better to simply remain in this peaceful seclusion, enjoying the fruits of awakening without the difficulty of trying to communicate what is, ultimately, beyond complete verbal expression. But compassion arose, the understanding that others were suffering just as he had suffered, the recognition that while the truth was subtle, it was not impossible to teach or to learn. Some beings, he realized, would understand. Some were ready. Some were waiting, without knowing they were waiting, for precisely this teaching. And so, the Buddha made the decision to teach, to offer what he had discovered to those who had eyes to see and ears to hear. He traveled to the deer park at Sarnath, where his former companions in asceticism were staying. These were the monks who had abandoned him when he gave up extreme fasting, believing he had lost his commitment to the spiritual path. But when they saw him approaching, something in his bearing, in his presence, made them pause. This was not a person who had given up. This was someone who had found something, who had broken through to some fundamental understanding. They listened as the Buddha began to teach, and what he taught them in that first discourse would become the foundation of all Buddhist philosophy, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. But we will explore those teachings more fully in the times ahead. For now, let us simply rest in this beginning, in this moment when the Buddha made the choice to share his awakening with the world, when the personal breakthrough became the foundation for a path that millions would walk over the coming centuries. The Buddha's own journey from palace to awakening contains all the essential elements of the teaching that would follow. The recognition of suffering in the 4 sights he witnessed beyond the palace walls, the understanding of suffering's cause in his realization that craving and clinging create dissatisfaction, the possibility of suffering's cessation in his own awakening to freedom, and the path that leads to that cessation, the middle way he discovered between indulgence and denial, between grasping and resisting, the path of balanced, mindful awareness of things as they truly are. As you settle more deeply into rest, let the image of the Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree remain gently in your awareness, not as something to think about or analyze, but simply as a peaceful presence, a reminder that clarity is possible, that peace is possible, that awakening is possible. The palace, the forest, the tree, the dawn, all steps on a journey toward understanding. All part of a path that is still here, still available, still offering its wisdom to those who seek it. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Let your body release whatever tension it may be holding. The Buddha found his peace not by escaping reality, but by seeing it clearly, not by running from impermanence, but by understanding it completely. And in that understanding, he found a freedom that no changing circumstance could threaten. This teaching is still here, still waiting, still offering its gentle invitation to see clearly, to live wisely, to find peace in the midst of life's constant changes. Rest now in this knowing. Rest now as the Buddha rested beneath the tree. The journey continues, but for now, simply rest. And so we continue, gently, peacefully, from that moment of awakening beneath the Bodhi tree. The Buddha sits in stillness, understanding flooding through him like moonlight through clear water. He has seen something profound, something simple, something that changes everything. And now, as the days pass in quiet meditation, he contemplates what he will do with this knowing. Should he remain in silence, dwelling in the peace he has discovered? Or should he attempt to share what seems almost impossible to put into words? The story tells us that he hesitated, recognizing how difficult these truths might be to convey, how easily they might be misunderstood. But compassion arose within him, a deep, abiding compassion for all beings who suffer without understanding why. And so he stood slowly, peacefully, and began to walk. His first steps as the awakened one carried him toward the city of Varanasi, toward the deer park at Sarnath, where 5 ascetics, his former companions, sat in their own spiritual practices. These were the men who had practiced extreme austerities alongside him, who had left him when he abandoned that path. They saw him approaching from a distance, and at first they agreed among themselves not to honor him, not to rise, for he had given up the rigorous path they still followed. But as he drew nearer, something in his presence, something in the way he moved through the world, changed their minds. They found themselves standing despite their agreement, drawn by a quality they couldn't name but could feel, a depth of peace, a radiant calm. And there, in that ancient deer park, with spotted deer resting peacefully in the dappled shade and the warm afternoon sun filtering through the trees, the Buddha gave his first teaching. It would come to be known as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the setting in motion of the wheel of Dharma. This teaching, offered so gently, so carefully, would become the foundation of everything that followed. It contained what Buddhists now call the Four Noble Truths, a framework so elegant, so profound, that it has guided seekers for over 2,000 years. Let us explore these truths now, slowly, contemplatively, allowing each one to settle into our awareness, like petals falling onto still water. The first truth is perhaps the most challenging to hear, yet it begins with honesty, with courage, with a willingness to look directly at our experience without turning away. The Buddha called it dukkha, often translated as suffering, though the word carries meanings more subtle and pervasive than suffering alone. Dukkha includes obvious pain and sorrow, yes, but it also encompasses dissatisfaction, unease, the subtle stress of existence itself. It points to that fundamental sense that something is not quite right, not quite enough, not quite settled. And the first noble truth states simply this: dukkha exists. There is suffering, there is unsatisfactoriness in human life. This is not pessimism, it is diagnosis. Like a wise physician, the Buddha begins by acknowledging the symptom. We experience pain when we lose what we love. We feel anxiety about the future, regret about the past. We achieve what we desired only to find it doesn't bring the lasting satisfaction we expected. We watch our bodies age, our relationships change, our certainties dissolve. Even in moments of happiness, there can be an underlying tension, a knowledge that this too will pass, that we cannot hold on to this feeling forever. The first noble truth asks us simply to recognize this, to see it clearly without denial or despair. This is the nature of conditioned existence. It contains dukkha, it contains suffering. And in this honest acknowledgement, something shifts. We stop pretending. We stop exhausting ourselves in the impossible task of arranging life so that we never feel discomfort, never face loss, never encounter difficulty. We see the truth, and in seeing it, we take the first step toward freedom. Rest with this first truth for a moment. Simply rest with the acknowledgement that suffering exists, that discontentment is part of the fabric of human experience. There is no need to fix it right now, no need to push it away. Just see it. Recognize it, let the truth settle. And as we rest in this seeing, we can move gently to the second noble truth, which offers something remarkable, an explanation. The second noble truth addresses the origin of suffering, the cause of this dukkha that permeates our lives, and the Buddha identified this cause with clarity and precision. Suffering arises from tanha, craving, thirst, desire. But this is not a condemnation of all wanting or preference. The Buddha is pointing to something more specific, more subtle. Tanha is the deep, compulsive grasping that arises from misunderstanding the nature of reality. It manifests in three primary forms, three types of craving that keep us bound to suffering. First, there is craving for sensory pleasure, kamatana, the endless pursuit of pleasant experiences through sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. We reach for the next pleasurable moment, and when it fades, as it always does, we immediately reach for another. We build our lives around the accumulation of pleasant experiences and the avoidance of unpleasant ones, exhausting ourselves in this constant pursuit. Second, there is craving for existence, bhavatanha, the deep desire to be, to become, to establish ourselves as solid, permanent, important. We want to secure our position, to be recognized, to achieve, to leave our mark, to continue. This craving underlies our drive for success, status, and the perpetuation of our sense of self. And third, more subtly, there is craving for non-existence, vibhavatanha, the desire to escape, to be free from difficulty through annihilation or denial. When life becomes too painful, we may wish simply not to be, not to feel, not to exist in this troublesome form. These three forms of craving, for pleasure, for existence, for non-existence, arise from a fundamental misunderstanding. We see things as permanent when they are impermanent. We see things as satisfying when they cannot provide lasting satisfaction. We see things as self when they are actually empty of independent, enduring selfhood. And from this misunderstanding, we grasp, we cling, we hold tight to what cannot be held. Imagine trying to grasp water in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more quickly it escapes. This is the nature of craving. We reach for experiences, relationships, possessions, achievements, and we try to hold them, to make them permanent, to extract from them a lasting security or happiness. But everything we grasp is changing, dissolving, moving on. And so we suffer, not because of the things themselves, but because of our relationship to them, our grasping at them, our demand that they be other than they are. The second noble truth shows us that suffering is not random, not punishment, not fate. It arises from specific causes, from craving rooted in misunderstanding. And this is extraordinarily hopeful, because it means that suffering is not our fundamental nature. It is produced by causes, and what is produced by causes can cease when those causes are removed. Let this understanding wash over you gently, peacefully. Suffering has a cause. It is not mysterious or beyond comprehension. It arises when we cling to the impermanent as if it were permanent, when we demand that changing phenomena provide unchanging satisfaction. Can you sense this in your own experience? The tension that arises when you want something to be different than it is? The disappointment when a pleasant experience ends? The anxiety about maintaining what you have or becoming what you wish to be? This is tanha. This is craving. And recognizing it, simply recognizing it without judgment, is the beginning of freedom. And now, having understood that suffering exists and that it arises from craving, we come to the third noble truth, perhaps the most hopeful, most liberating truth of all. The third noble truth declares that there is an end to suffering. Cessation is possible. The Pali word is nirodha, the stopping, the ending, the cessation of dukkha. This truth proclaims that we are not condemned to perpetual suffering, not trapped forever in cycles of dissatisfaction and pain. Freedom is possible. Liberation is possible. The ending of craving leads naturally, inevitably, to the ending of suffering. When we no longer grasp at pleasure, no longer cling to existence, no longer demand that reality conform to our preferences, suffering ceases, not because life changes to accommodate us, but because we have changed our relationship to life. We have seen through the pattern that binds us. The Buddha called this state nibbana in Pali, or nirvana in Sanskrit, a word that literally means the extinguishing or blowing out of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. It is not annihilation of the person, not a void or nothingness, but rather the extinguishing of the causes of suffering. Imagine a flame that has consumed all its fuel. It doesn't go somewhere else, it simply ceases to burn. Similarly, when the fuel of craving is exhausted through wisdom and practice, the fires of suffering simply cease. This is not something distant, not something reserved only for monks or saints or the specially gifted. The third noble truth assures us that every being has the capacity for this liberation, that the end of suffering is accessible here and now, in this very life, in this very moment. It may happen gradually, through progressive insight and practice, or in sudden moments of clear seeing. But it is possible, it is real, and this possibility changes everything. To know that suffering can end is to know that your current struggles, your current pains, your current anxieties are not the final word on human existence. They are conditions that arose from causes, and they can cease when those causes are understood and relinquished. Feel this possibility settling into your awareness now, gently, without force. Suffering can end. Peace is possible. Liberation is your birthright, not something earned through impossible perfection, but something revealed through clear seeing. The third noble truth doesn't promise that pain will never arise. The body will still age, relationships will still change, loss will still occur. But it promises that the suffering we create through our craving and clinging to these experiences can cease. We can experience life's inevitable changes without being devastated by them. We can feel pain without suffering. We can face loss without despair. This is the remarkable promise of the third noble truth. And how is this liberation achieved? This brings us naturally, peacefully to the fourth noble truth, the truth of the path. The fourth noble truth is not abstract philosophy, but practical guidance. It presents the method, the way, the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. The Buddha called it the Noble Eightfold Path, and it encompasses every aspect of human life, how we think, speak, act, live, work, and cultivate our minds. But we will explore this path more fully in the acts that follow. For now, simply rest in the knowledge that such a path exists. The Buddha did not simply diagnose the problem and name its solution. He provided a complete map for the journey from suffering to freedom. These four noble truths form the foundation of all Buddhist teaching. They are often compared to the methodology of a skilled physician. First, diagnose the illness. Suffering exists. Second, identify its cause, craving rooted in misunderstanding. Third, proclaim the possibility of cure. Suffering can cease. Fourth, prescribe the treatment. Follow the path. This structure is elegant, complete, and profoundly compassionate. It begins with honesty about our condition, offers understanding of why we suffer, provides hope through the possibility of freedom, and gives practical guidance for achieving that freedom. Let these truths settle into you now, like stones settling into soft earth. Let them rest in your awareness without struggle or strain. As we rest with the Four Noble Truths, we begin to notice something remarkable about this framework. It is not asking us to believe anything on faith alone. It is not demanding adherence to dogma or doctrine. Instead, it is inviting us to investigate our own experience, to look closely at our own lives and see if these truths hold. Do you experience suffering, dissatisfaction, the sense that something is not quite right? Look and see. Does that suffering seem to intensify when you cling to what is changing, when you demand permanence from the impermanent? Look and see. Have there been moments when you released your grip on how things should be and found peace in accepting how things are? Look and see. This is the empirical nature of the Buddha's teaching. It is psychology, phenomenology, science of mind. It is an invitation to experiment, to observe, to discover the truth of these principles in the laboratory of your own consciousness. The Buddha himself reportedly said, "Do not believe something simply because you have heard it, or because it is traditional, or because it appears in Scripture. When you know for yourselves that certain things are unwholesome and wrong and lead to suffering, then you should abandon them. And when you know for yourselves that certain things are wholesome and good and lead to well-being, then you should adopt them." This is radical intellectual honesty. This is trust in your own capacity for wisdom. And so as we contemplate the Four Noble Truths, we can do so with a spirit of gentle inquiry. We don't need to force ourselves to believe or accept anything. We simply observe, we notice, we investigate. When suffering arises, we can become curious about it rather than immediately trying to fix it or push it away. What does this suffering feel like? Where is it located in the body? What thoughts accompany it? What desires or aversions seem to fuel it? We become students of our own experience, scientists of our own consciousness, and gradually, through this kind attention, patterns become clear. We see how grasping creates tension. We see how aversion creates struggle. We see how confusion about the nature of reality keeps us bound to cycles of dissatisfaction, and in seeing clearly, something begins to shift. The Four Noble Truths are sometimes described as truths to be understood, but they are also tasks to be accomplished. The first truth, suffering exists, is to be fully understood, not denied or minimized. We must look directly at dukkha in all its forms, obvious and subtle. The second truth, the origin of suffering and craving, is to be abandoned. Not suppressed or repressed, but seen so clearly that it naturally releases its hold. The third truth, the cessation of suffering, is to be realized, to be made real in our own experience. And the fourth truth, the path, is to be cultivated, to be developed through practice and living. These are not passive truths to memorize, but active engagements with reality. They require something of us: attention, honesty, patience, practice. Yet they do not demand what we cannot give. They work with our capacity as it is right now, meeting us wherever we are on the journey. If you are weary, they offer rest and understanding. If you are confused, they offer clarity and structure. If you are suffering, they offer hope and the possibility of cessation. The teaching is flexible, meeting each person according to their needs and understanding. Some may engage with these truths intellectually, finding freedom through philosophical inquiry and analysis. Others may approach them through meditation and direct contemplation. Still others may discover their validity through ethical living and compassionate action in the world. The truths remain the same, but the path to understanding them is as varied as human beings themselves. Rest now in this framework, this elegant structure that honors both the difficulty of human life and the possibility of transcending that difficulty. The Four Noble Truths are not meant to be grasped all at once, not meant to be fully comprehended in a single hearing. They are meant to unfold gradually, revealing deeper and deeper layers of meaning as we return to them again and again throughout our lives. Each time we encounter them, we bring new experiences, new insights, new questions, and each time they offer fresh understanding, fresh guidance, fresh hope. And so we come to rest at the end of this exploration of the Four Noble Truths, though of course the exploration never truly ends. These truths remain with us, available to us, ready to illuminate our experience whenever we turn our attention to them. Let us take a moment to hold them all together, gently, peacefully in our awareness. Suffering exists, the honest acknowledgement of dukkha in all its forms. Suffering has a cause, the recognition that craving and clinging bind us to dissatisfaction. Suffering can cease, the hopeful understanding that liberation is possible. There is a path, the practical knowledge that we are not helpless, that there are steps we can take, practices we can cultivate, ways of being we can develop that lead to freedom. These four truths, offered so long ago in that deer park in Sarnath, have guided countless beings toward peace, toward wisdom, toward liberation. They have been contemplated in mountain monasteries and city apartments, in ancient kingdoms and modern nations, by people of every culture and every circumstance. And they remain as relevant, as true, as transformative today as they were 26 centuries ago. Because they speak to something fundamental in human experience. They speak to the universal condition of being conscious, embodied, relational beings in a constantly changing world. The specific forms of our suffering may vary across time and culture, but the underlying structure remains the same. We grasp at what cannot be held. We resist what cannot be avoided. We misunderstand the nature of ourselves and reality, and from that misunderstanding, we suffer. But we also have the capacity to understand, to see clearly, to release our grip, to find peace. This capacity is not separate from us, not something we must acquire from outside. It is our nature, waiting to be uncovered, like gold beneath layers of earth. The Four Noble Truths are a map to that uncovering, a guide to that discovery. As you rest now, let these truths settle into the deepest parts of your being, not as intellectual concepts to be stored away, but as living wisdom that can inform and transform every moment of your life. When suffering arises, and it will arise, for that is the first truth, you can meet it with understanding rather than despair. When you notice craving or aversion, and you will notice it, for that is the second truth, you can observe it with curiosity rather than judgment. When you glimpse peace, even for a moment, and you will glimpse it, for that is the third truth, you can trust that peace, knowing it is not accidental but the natural result of releasing the causes of suffering. And when you need guidance, and we all need guidance, for that is why the fourth truth exists, you can return to the path, to the practices, to the teachings that have guided so many before you. The wheel of Dharma, set in motion in that ancient deer park, continues to turn. The teaching continues to be offered, continues to be available, continues to illuminate the way from suffering to freedom. And you are part of this lineage now, part of this great river of seekers and practitioners, and those who have dedicated their lives to understanding and embodying these truths. Rest in this connection. Rest in this ancient wisdom that is also immediate and present. Rest in the knowledge that suffering can cease, that peace is possible, that liberation is your birthright. The Buddha sits still under the Bodhi tree, awakened, at peace. The first disciples sit in the deer park, hearing these truths for the first time, their lives about to be transformed. And you sit here now, in your own time and place, receiving the same teaching, opening to the same possibility. Let the boundaries between then and now soften. Let the essence of the teaching, clear seeing, compassionate release, peaceful abiding fill your awareness. There is nothing you need to do right now, nowhere you need to go. Simply rest in this understanding. Simply be held by these ancient truths. Simply allow the possibility of freedom to permeate your being as you drift towards sleep, peaceful, supported, knowing that the path is here, the teaching is here, and awakening is possible. Rest now. Simply rest. And now, as you rest in this understanding, as you allow yourself to be held by these ancient truths, we turn our attention to perhaps the most fundamental insight of all Buddhist philosophy, the teaching of Anicca, the profound truth of impermanence. This is not merely an intellectual concept to be grasped, but a deep recognition to be experienced, felt, understood in the very fabric of your being. Impermanence, the Buddha taught, is woven into every moment of existence, every breath you take, every thought that arises and dissolves in your mind like mist in morning sunlight. The Buddha spoke of Anicca with great tenderness, not as a teaching meant to frighten or sadden, but as a truth that when fully embraced becomes the very doorway to peace. All conditioned things, he observed, are impermanent. Everything that arises must pass away. Every phenomenon, from the smallest grain of sand to the vastest galaxy, from the briefest flicker of emotion to the longest human life, is in constant flux, constantly changing, never remaining the same for even 2 consecutive moments. Consider for a moment the breath moving through your body right now. Notice how each inhalation arises, fills your lungs with life-giving air, reaches its natural fullness, and then passes away. The exhalation follows, emptying, releasing, dissolving into the space around you. You cannot hold on to a single breath. You cannot keep it. Each one must give way to the next. And in this simple rhythm, this arising and passing of breath, you are experiencing Anicca directly, intimately, in the most immediate way possible. The Buddha encouraged his students to observe this truth everywhere, in all things. Watch a flower blooming in the garden, he might have said. See how the tight bud slowly opens, revealing delicate petals of extraordinary beauty. For a few precious days, the flower displays its colors to the world, offers its fragrance to passing bees, turns its face toward the sun. And then inevitably the petals begin to fade, to wither, to fall away. The flower that was so vibrant returns to the earth, becomes nourishment for new growth, participates in the endless cycle of transformation. Is this tragic? The Buddha asked his followers to look more deeply. Is the falling of the flower a failure, a loss, something to grieve? Or is it simply the nature of flowers, the truth of how flowers are? Without the falling away, there could be no new blooms. Without the ending, there could be no beginning. The impermanence of the flower is not separate from its beauty, it is essential to its beauty. We treasure the blossom precisely because we know somewhere in our hearts that it will not last forever. Now bring this same gentle observation to the seasons themselves. Notice how winter gradually, imperceptibly, gives way to spring. The frozen earth softens. Seeds that have lain dormant beneath the snow begin to stir with mysterious intelligence. Shoots push upward toward light. The world transforms from white and gray to green and gold. Spring becomes summer, abundance flowing into fullness, warm days stretching long into evening, life expressing itself with exuberant energy. And then, just as naturally, the turning continues. Summer mellows into autumn, leaves transforming into extraordinary colors, crimson, amber, gold, before drifting downward in the cool air. The cycle continues, never pausing, never static, always moving, always changing. No season lasts forever. No season can be grasped and held. Yet the seasons are not chaotic or random. They follow their ancient pattern, reliable in their change, trustworthy in their impermanence. And because of this endless turning, the earth remains fertile. Life continues. Beauty keeps emerging in new forms. This is Anicca, not destruction but transformation, not loss but flow. Not something to fear, but the fundamental rhythm of all existence, as natural as waves upon the ocean, as inevitable as dawn following darkness. The Buddha invited his students to observe impermanence not only in the external world of nature and seasons, but also in the landscape of their own minds. Sit quietly, he suggested, and simply watch what arises in consciousness. Notice how thoughts appear seemingly from nowhere, take shape, occupy your attention for a moment, and then dissolve back into silence. You did not summon these thoughts deliberately. You cannot control exactly which thought will come next, and you cannot make a thought stay once it has decided to depart. Emotions, too, follow this same pattern of arising and passing. A moment of joy bubbles up like a spring, fills you with warmth and lightness, and then gradually fades. Sadness descends like evening shadows, feels as though it might last forever, and yet, given time, given space, it too transforms, shifts, makes room for something else. Anger flares hot and urgent and then cools. Fear grips tightly and then releases. Even the most intense emotional states are impermanent, moving through you like weather moving through a vast sky. This observation is not meant to diminish the reality of your experience. The Buddha was not saying that your emotions are not real or not important. Rather, he was pointing to their nature, their temporary nature, their changing nature. When you believe that a particular emotional state will last forever, you suffer. When you cling desperately to pleasant experiences, trying to make them permanent, you suffer. When you resist unpleasant experiences, refusing to accept their temporary presence, you suffer. But when you recognize the impermanent nature of all mental states, something profound shifts. You begin to hold your experiences more lightly. You can feel joy without grasping at it. You can feel sorrow without being destroyed by it. You understand that this too shall pass, not as a cold dismissal of your experience, but as a compassionate recognition of the truth. Everything changes, everything moves. Nothing remains frozen in place, and in this understanding there is tremendous freedom, tremendous peace. The Buddha sometimes used the metaphor of a river to illustrate this truth. You can never step into the same river twice, he noted, because the water is always flowing, always new. The river that looks so solid and permanent from the bank is actually in constant motion, constant transformation. The water that rushed past a moment ago is already far downstream. New water has taken its place. And yet we call it the same river. We give it a name as though it were a fixed thing, a permanent entity. In the same way, we speak of ourselves as though we were fixed, permanent entities. We say, I am this way, or I have always been like this, as though our identity were carved in stone. But the Buddha invited his students to look more closely. The person you were 10 years ago, is that the same person sitting here now? The cells of your body have been replaced many times over. Your thoughts have changed, your beliefs have evolved, your preferences have shifted. Even your memories of the past are not static. They change each time you recall them, colored by your present mood, your current understanding. Who, then, are you? The Buddha suggested that you are not a fixed self, but a process, a flowing, a constant becoming. You are more like a river than a stone, more like a flame than a sculpture. A flame appears solid when you glance at it quickly, but look closely and you see it is nothing but constant movement, fuel being transformed into light and heat, energy dancing in a particular pattern. The flame of a candle burning now is not the same flame that burned a moment ago, and yet we speak of it as one continuous flame. This understanding of impermanence extends even to what we consider our most solid, substantial possessions and relationships. The house you live in is slowly aging, weathering, changing. The body you inhabit is moving through its natural cycles of growth and decline. The relationships you cherish are evolving, deepening, or sometimes fading. Nothing can be held on to forever. Nothing remains exactly as it is. And while this might initially seem like a teaching of loss, the Buddha pointed to something more profound. When you stop trying to freeze life in place, when you stop demanding that things remain unchanged, you discover the extraordinary beauty of each moment exactly as it is, right now, perfect in its temporary presence. As we continue to rest in this exploration of impermanence, let us turn our attention to the way the Buddha connected this teaching to the very heart of human suffering. You see, it is not impermanence itself that causes suffering. Change is neutral. It simply is the way things are. Rather, suffering arises from our relationship with impermanence, from our resistance to it, from our deep desire for permanence in a world where nothing can be permanent. We see something beautiful and immediately want to possess it, to keep it, to make it ours forever. We experience pleasure and grasp at it, trying to extend it, to repeat it, to make it last. We achieve a moment of success or happiness and frantically build walls around it, terrified that it will slip away. This grasping, this clinging, this desperate attempt to make permanent what is by nature impermanent, this is the source of our suffering. Similarly, when we encounter something unpleasant, we resist it with all our strength. We want it to go away immediately, to cease, to never have happened. We rail against loss, against aging, against change that brings discomfort or pain. We want time to stop, circumstances to freeze, life to obey our preferences. And because life cannot and will not obey, because change continues regardless of our wishes, we suffer. We suffer not from the change itself, but from our resistance to it. The Buddha offered a radical alternative: acceptance. Not a passive resignation or a cold indifference, but a warm, wise acceptance of reality as it is. What if you could experience pleasant things fully, joyfully, without needing them to last forever? What if you could let each good moment be exactly what it is, a gift, a grace, a temporary flowering, and then release it when it naturally passes, making space for whatever comes next? And what if you could meet unpleasant experiences with the same quality of acceptance? Not welcoming suffering, not pretending that pain feels good, but simply acknowledging this is here now, this is what is arising in this moment, and like all things, it will change. Can you hold your pain gently, the way you might hold a crying child, with compassion but without panic, knowing that tears do eventually cease, that storms do pass, that the intensity of this moment will not last forever? This is the profound peace that comes from truly understanding and accepting Anicca. When you stop fighting against the fundamental nature of reality, when you stop demanding that life be different from what it is, a great burden lifts from your shoulders. You can breathe more easily. You can move through your days with greater lightness. You begin to trust the process of life itself, the arising and the passing, the coming and the going, the beginning and the ending. The Buddha taught that everything dependently co-arises. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is connected to everything else in a vast web of relationship and causation. And because of this interconnection, because of this constant interplay of causes and conditions, nothing can remain static. To be alive is to be in relationship, and to be in relationship is to be subject to change. The flower depends on soil, sun, water, season. When conditions change, the flower must change. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system working exactly as it must. You too are part of this vast, interconnected web. You arise from countless causes and conditions: your parents, your ancestors, your culture, your experiences, the food you eat, the air you breathe, the thoughts of others that have influenced your thinking. You are not separate from the world, not isolated, not independent. You are woven into the fabric of existence itself, connected to all beings, all phenomena, all of life. And because you are connected, you change. Because you are alive, you flow. Because you are part of this universe, you participate in its fundamental nature, Anicca, impermanence, the endless dance of transformation. To resist this is to resist life itself. To accept this is to come home to the truth of who and what you are. Not a fixed, separate self, but a beautiful, temporary, ever-changing expression of the universe experiencing itself, knowing itself, transforming itself moment by moment by moment. Rest in this understanding now. Let it settle into your bones. You do not need to force anything, achieve anything, become anything other than what you already are. Simply allow yourself to be carried by the truth of impermanence, the way a leaf is carried by a gentle stream moving with the current, resting in the flow, at peace with the journey. As we move deeper into this understanding of impermanence, let us slow down even further, allowing the teaching to become not just something we think about, but something we feel, something we rest in, something that holds us gently as we drift toward sleep. The Buddha spoke of Anicca with great tenderness because he knew that this truth, when truly understood, dissolves fear rather than creating it. Consider the night sky above you, vast and dark and scattered with ancient starlight. Those stars you see are not as they are now, but as they were years ago, decades ago, even centuries ago, their light traveling across unimaginable distances to reach your eyes in this very moment. Some of those stars may have already transformed, may have already completed their cosmic cycle, may have already become something new, a supernova, a nebula, a dark remnant. And yet their light still reaches you, still touches you, still participates in your experience of this moment. Everything is like this, already passing, already changing, already becoming something new, even as we experience it. The moment you are in right now is already dissolving into the past. The breath you just took is already gone. The thought that just moved through your mind has already transformed. And yet, this is not loss. This is simply the way things are. This is the nature of time, the nature of existence, the nature of being alive. The Buddha encouraged his students to find peace in this truth, not anxiety. When you understand that all things are impermanent, you can release the heavy burden of trying to control everything, trying to fix everything in place, trying to make life obey your will. You can relax into the flow. You can trust the process. You can let go of the exhausting effort of resistance and simply be with what is, exactly as it is, for as long as it is here. There is a profound intimacy that becomes possible when you accept impermanence. When you know that this moment will not last, you can be fully present to it. When you know that this person you love will not be here forever, you can cherish them more completely now. When you know that your own life is temporary, you can live it more fully, more authentically, more courageously. Impermanence does not diminish the value of things, it illuminates their preciousness. Imagine holding a handful of snow on a winter day. The crystals are exquisitely beautiful, each one unique, each one a small miracle of geometry and light. But you know the snow will melt, you know it cannot last. Does this knowledge make the snow less beautiful? Does it make the experience less precious? Or does it perhaps make you pay closer attention, notice more carefully, appreciate more fully the brief time you have with this handful of beauty? The Buddha taught that when we truly accept impermanence, we stop taking things for granted. We stop postponing life, waiting for some imagined future moment when conditions will be perfect. We stop clinging so desperately to the past, to memories, to the way things used to be. Instead, we arrive fully in the present moment, in this breath, in this sensation, in this experience, knowing it is here now, knowing it is precious, knowing it will change. And there is something else the Buddha wanted his students to understand. Impermanence means that you are never trapped. No matter how difficult things are right now, they will change. No matter how stuck you feel, the situation is already shifting, already transforming, already becoming something new. The painful emotion you are feeling will ease. The difficult circumstances will evolve. The struggle will not last forever. Nothing lasts forever. Not the bad things. And yes, not the good things either. But this understanding brings balance, brings perspective, brings hope. You can bear anything when you know it is temporary. You can endure discomfort when you understand it is already passing. You can hold space for your own pain with compassion when you recognize that it too is impermanent, that it too is part of the great flowing river of experience, that it too will transform in its own time according to its own nature. So rest now in this understanding. Rest in the truth of Anicca. Rest in the recognition that all things are changing, always changing, beautifully changing. Rest in the knowledge that you do not need to hold on to anything, control anything, fix anything in place. Rest in the flow of your own breath, rising and falling, appearing and disappearing, perfectly impermanent, perfectly natural, perfect peace. Let this understanding settle over you like a soft blanket, like gentle starlight, like the quiet blessing it truly is. And now, as we complete our exploration of impermanence, as we allow this ancient teaching to carry us gently toward rest, toward sleep, toward peace, let us simply be with the truth of Anicca in the most intimate way possible, through the experience of this very moment, this breath, this quiet awareness that holds all things lightly, that releases all things gently, that trusts the great unfolding of life exactly as it is. Notice your body resting. Notice the support beneath you, solid and steady in this moment. And yet even this, even the bed, even the earth itself is participating in the dance of impermanence, changing slowly, imperceptibly, constantly becoming something new. Everything is in motion, even what appears most still. Everything is transforming, even what appears most solid. And you can rest in this truth. You can let yourself be held by it. Your breath continues its ancient rhythm, rising and falling, appearing and disappearing, requiring nothing from you, asking for no effort, simply happening as breath has happened for millions of years, in countless bodies, in endless forms. Each breath is unique, unrepeatable, a small miracle of aliveness that appears for just a moment and then releases back into the universe. And in this simple rhythm, you are participating in the truth the Buddha taught. Everything arises, everything passes away, everything is perfectly impermanent. Thoughts drift through your awareness like clouds across a wide sky. Some are light and wispy, barely noticeable. Some are darker, more substantial, holding your attention briefly before dissolving. You do not need to follow them, do not need to grasp them, do not need to push them away. Simply let them move through the spaciousness of your awareness, arising and passing, coming and going, like everything else in this universe of constant change. The Buddha taught that when you truly understand impermanence, when you feel it not just as an idea but as a living reality, something profound happens. Clinging begins to release, resistance begins to soften. The tight grip you have been holding on life begins to loosen, and in that loosening there is tremendous relief, tremendous ease, tremendous peace. You do not need to hold on so tightly. You do not need to control so desperately. You can trust the process of change itself. Every ending contains a beginning. Every loss makes space for something new. Every dissolution is also a transformation. The autumn leaf that falls to the ground becomes nourishment for spring growth. The wave that crashes on the shore returns to the ocean that birthed it. The breath that leaves your body makes room for the next breath to enter. Nothing is truly lost. Everything simply changes form, changes shape, participates in the endless cycle of transformation that is the very fabric of existence. And you, too, are part of this cycle. You, too, are temporary, changing, impermanent. And this is not a tragedy. This is the condition that makes your life possible, meaningful, precious. Because you are impermanent, you can grow, learn, evolve, become. Because you are changing, you are alive. Because you are temporary, you are beautiful. Let yourself rest now in the truth of Anicca. Let it hold you the way darkness holds the stars, the way silence holds music, the way the ocean holds waves. You are held by the fundamental truth of existence itself. Everything changes, everything flows, everything is perfectly, beautifully, peacefully impermanent. Your body is growing heavy, relaxed, releasing into rest. Your mind is growing quiet, spacious, releasing into peace. The boundaries between you and the world around you are softening, dissolving, revealing the truth that you were never truly separate, never truly isolated, always connected to the great flowing river of life, always part of the endless transformation, always held by the universe that gave you birth and to which you will one day return, only to become something new, something else, something connected to everything that is. Rest in impermanence. Rest in change. Rest in the profound peace that comes from accepting reality exactly as it is. Rest in the wisdom of the Buddha, these ancient teachings that point to the truth of your own experience, your own breath, your own beautiful, temporary, precious existence. Let go now. Let everything be as it is. Let yourself drift on the current of Anicca, the great river of change, the endless flow of arising and passing, beginning and ending, appearing and dissolving. You are safe here. You are held here. You can release everything and simply rest, simply sleep, simply be, knowing that everything is changing, everything is flowing, and in that flow, in that change, in that impermanence, there is perfect peace. Rest now, rest in Anicca, rest in the truth. Simply rest. Rest now. Rest in Anicca, rest in the truth. Simply rest. And as you rest here, breathing softly in this space of understanding, we begin to walk together along another path, a gentle path, a balanced path. This is the middle way, the path that the Buddha discovered not through extremes but through harmony, not through struggle but through wisdom. After years of severe asceticism, after pushing his body to the very edge of survival, Siddhartha realized that neither luxury nor deprivation would lead to awakening. The truth lay between, in the place of balance, in the space where we neither grasp nor reject, where we neither indulge nor deny. This middle way is not a compromise, not a half measure, but a full and complete understanding that wisdom lies in balance, that peace emerges from equilibrium, that the path to liberation runs along the center line between all extremes. And so we walk this path now, you and I, moving gently through the landscape of Buddhist practice, discovering the ways that mindfulness, meditation, and compassion can transform our experience of being alive. There is no rushing here. There is no destination we must reach. The middle way is itself the goal, the practice itself the attainment, the walking itself the arriving. So let us walk slowly, breathing with each step, noticing with gentle attention how each practice flows naturally into the next, like water finding its level, like breath moving in its ancient rhythm. The Buddha taught that this middle way unfolds along 8 interconnected paths, 8 aspects of wise living that support and strengthen one another. These are not commandments to obey, but invitations to explore, not rigid rules, but flexible principles, each one a doorway into deeper understanding. And we will explore them now, not with effort or strain, but with the same gentle curiosity that we might bring to watching clouds drift across an evening sky, or listening to rain fall on leaves, or feeling the subtle rise and fall of our own breathing. Rest deeper now as we begin. The first aspect is right understanding, which means seeing clearly the nature of reality, understanding impermanence, understanding suffering, understanding that all things arise from conditions and pass away into new conditions. You already know this truth. It lives in you now. You have felt it in these moments of rest, this recognition that everything flows, everything changes, everything moves in its natural rhythm. Right understanding is simply this seeing, this knowing, this quiet acceptance of what is. And from this understanding naturally flows right intention, the cultivation of thoughts rooted in kindness, in renunciation of harm, in goodwill toward all beings. When we see clearly how interconnected everything is, how each action ripples outward, how each thought shapes our experience, we naturally begin to align our intentions with wisdom, with compassion, with peace. There is no force needed here, no grinding determination, just a gentle turning toward the light like a flower following the sun across the sky. These 2 aspects, understanding and intention, form the wisdom portion of the path, the foundation upon which all else rests. And you can feel them now, can't you? This quiet knowing, this gentle intention toward peace. They are here with you, in you, supporting you as you rest, as you breathe, as you simply allow yourself to be exactly as you are in this moment, perfect in your imperfection, whole in your incompleteness, at peace in the midst of all change. Breathe softly now, and let us continue our gentle walk along the middle way. From wisdom, we move into ethics, into the practical expression of our understanding through the way we live, the way we speak, the way we act in the world. This is not morality imposed from outside, not rules to follow out of fear, but the natural flowering of wisdom into compassionate action. When we truly understand impermanence and interconnection, when we see clearly how all beings share in the experience of suffering and seeking happiness, ethical behavior becomes not a burden but a joy, not a restriction but a liberation. The third aspect is right speech, which invites us to use words that are true, that are kind, that are helpful, that are timely. It asks us to refrain from lying, from harsh speech, from gossip, from words that divide and wound. And this practice extends even into our inner dialogue, the way we speak to ourselves in the quiet chambers of our own minds. Can we be gentle there? Can we be truthful without cruelty, honest without harshness? Right speech is a practice of awareness, of noticing the power that words carry, the way they can heal or harm, connect or separate, bring peace or create suffering. And flowing naturally from speech comes right action, the guidance to act in ways that do not harm, that do not steal, that honor the well-being of all beings. This is ahimsa, non-harming, the principle that recognizes the preciousness of life in all its forms. When our actions are rooted in this understanding, we move through the world more lightly, more carefully, more lovingly. We become aware of the consequences that ripple out from everything we do, and we choose moment by moment to act in ways that reduce suffering rather than increase it. There is such freedom in this, such peace in knowing that our actions align with our deepest values, our truest understanding. And then comes right livelihood, the invitation to earn our living in ways that do not cause harm, that do not exploit, that do not contribute to suffering. This asks us to consider how our work affects others, how it affects the world, how it affects our own hearts and minds. When our livelihood aligns with our values, when we can rest easy knowing that our work in the world is not causing harm, there is a deep ease that settles into our being, a quiet satisfaction that no amount of money or status could provide. These three aspects, speech, action, livelihood, form the ethical portion of the path, the way wisdom manifests in our daily lives. And even now, as you rest, you can feel the simplicity of this, the way these practices are not complicated or difficult to understand, but rather perfectly obvious expressions of kindness, of care, of love. You already know how to speak with kindness. You already know how to act without causing harm. These capacities live within you, waiting to be honored, to be practiced, to be brought into fuller expression. Rest in this knowing, rest in the recognition that you already carry within you everything needed to walk this path, to live this way, to embody this wisdom. There is nothing you must acquire from outside yourself, nothing you must become that you are not already, in essence, in potential, in the quiet depths of your being. The path is here, the way is open, and you are already walking it, breath by breath, moment by moment, simply by being present, simply by resting, simply by allowing this gentle teaching to wash over you like waves on a peaceful shore, rhythmic and soothing, constant and kind. And now, breathing even more softly, sinking even more deeply into rest, we come to the heart of the practice, to the mental discipline that supports and sustains all else. These final three aspects of the path, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, form the meditation portion, the cultivation of a mind that is clear, stable, and awake. Right effort is not the striving of ambition or the pushing of will, but rather a gentle, consistent application of attention, a patient willingness to work with the mind as it is. It means making effort to prevent unwholesome states from arising, to let go of unwholesome states that have arisen, to cultivate wholesome states, and to maintain wholesome states that are present. This might sound complicated, but it is actually quite simple, as natural as tending a garden, pulling weeds gently when they appear, watering the flowers we wish to grow, protecting tender shoots from harsh weather. Right effort is this same tender care applied to the landscape of consciousness, this same gentle attention to the conditions we are creating within ourselves. And it is relaxed effort, not tense, not strained, but patient and kind, recognizing that transformation takes time, that growth unfolds in its own rhythm, that we cannot force awakening any more than we can force a seed to sprout by pulling on it. We can only provide the conditions, the soil, the water, the light, and then wait with patience, with trust, with faith in the natural unfolding of things. Right mindfulness, the seventh aspect, is perhaps the most well-known of Buddhist practices. It is the cultivation of present moment awareness, the practice of bringing full attention to our experience as it unfolds, without judgment, without grasping, without pushing away. Mindfulness invites us to notice the body, to feel sensation as it arises and passes, to observe breath flowing in and out, to recognize the miracle of being alive in this moment. This precious, unrepeatable moment. It invites us to notice feelings as they arise, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and to observe them with curiosity rather than reactivity, to see how they too are impermanent, arising from conditions and dissolving back into spaciousness. Mindfulness notices thoughts as they appear in consciousness, watches them drift through like clouds across the sky, recognizes that we are not our thoughts, but the awareness in which thoughts appear. And mindfulness brings attention to the quality of mind itself, noticing when it is calm or agitated, focused or scattered, open or contracted. This practice is so simple. Just noticing, just being present, just paying attention to what is actually happening right here, right now. And yet in this simplicity lies profound transformation. When we are truly present, suffering loses its grip. When we are truly mindful, we stop living in the past or future and discover the peace that exists only now, only here, only in this breath, this heartbeat, this moment of being alive. And from mindfulness naturally develops right concentration, the eighth aspect, which is the capacity to rest attention steadily on a chosen object, to gather the scattered energies of mind into focused, unified awareness. Through concentration, the mind becomes calm, stable, powerful. Thoughts settle like sediment in a still pond, and in that clarity we can see deeply into the nature of things, can perceive truths that remain hidden when the mind is agitated and dispersed. Concentration is developed through meditation, through the patient practice of returning attention again and again to the breath, or a phrase, or a visualization, or the simple sensation of being present. Each time the mind wanders and we gently bring it back, we strengthen this capacity for stability, for presence, for deep peace. These 8 aspects together form a complete path, a whole way of being, each part supporting every other part in a beautiful web of interconnection. Right understanding deepens right concentration. Right concentration clarifies right understanding. Right mindfulness informs right speech. Right speech strengthens right mindfulness. Around and around, each practice reinforcing the others, creating an ascending spiral of wisdom and compassion, of clarity and peace. And woven through all of this, like a golden thread running through fine fabric, is the practice of loving kindness, of metta, the deliberate cultivation of goodwill toward all beings. This practice is so simple, so gentle, so profoundly transformative. We begin with ourselves, offering kindness to our own being. May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. These phrases or others like them repeated softly in the mind, allowing the meaning to sink in, allowing ourselves to receive this kindness, this care, this unconditional goodwill. So often we are harsh with ourselves, critical, demanding, unforgiving. Loving kindness practice softens this, opens space for tenderness, for self-compassion, for the recognition that we too deserve kindness, that we too are worthy of love. And then once we have established this foundation of self-kindness, we extend the practice outward. We bring to mind someone we love, a dear friend, a family member, a teacher, and we offer them the same phrases, the same goodwill. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. We feel what it's like to wish them well, to want their happiness, to care about their well-being. And then we extend further still to someone neutral, someone we neither love nor dislike, perhaps someone we see regularly but don't really know, the person at the grocery store, a neighbor, someone we pass on the street. We offer them the same kindness. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. This begins to reveal the radical nature of the practice, the way it asks us to expand our circle of care beyond the familiar, beyond those who directly benefit us, to include all beings in our field of loving kindness. And then, if we wish, we can extend the practice even further to someone difficult, someone with whom we have conflict, someone who has hurt us. This is challenging, yes, but also profoundly liberating. Because when we can wish even our enemies well, when we can hold even those who have harmed us in a field of kindness, we free ourselves from the prison of resentment, from the suffering of hatred, from the burden of carrying animosity in our hearts. We recognize that they too suffer, that they too seek happiness, that they too are caught in the web of conditions, acting from confusion, acting from pain. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. And finally, we extend loving kindness to all beings everywhere, without exception, without limit. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease. We let this feeling of universal goodwill expand outward like light from a flame, reaching in all directions, including all beings in its warm embrace, humans and animals, beings we can see and beings too small to see, those nearby and those far away, those we know and those we will never meet. All beings, all beings, all beings, may all beings be free from suffering, may all beings know peace. And now, as we near the end of this act, this gentle exploration of the middle way, we come to rest in equanimity, in upekkha, that quality of balanced presence that neither grasps at pleasure nor pushes away pain, that meets all experience with even-minded awareness, with acceptance, with peace. Equanimity is not indifference, not coldness, not detachment in the sense of not caring. Rather, it is a deep, warm presence that can hold all things with equal grace, that recognizes the impermanence we explored in our last time together and meets that impermanence with serenity, with trust, with an unshakable peace that is not dependent on conditions being a certain way. Equanimity understands that pleasant experiences will arise and pass away, that unpleasant experiences will arise and pass away, that all things are flowing, all things are changing, and in that flow there is nothing to hold on to, nothing to push away, only this moment to be present with, to meet fully, to accept completely. Equanimity says yes to life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Equanimity bows to reality, honors truth, makes peace with impermanence. And in this acceptance, there is tremendous freedom, tremendous ease, because we stop fighting with reality, stop exhausting ourselves in the futile attempt to make impermanent things permanent, to make conditional happiness unconditional, to freeze the flowing river of existence into a static photograph. We let go, we release, we allow. We rest in equanimity as waves lap at a peaceful shore, as breath moves in its gentle rhythm, as the heart beats its steady measure, as all things arise and pass away in their own time, in their own way, following the great law of Anicca, of impermanence, of constant change. The middle way brings us here, to this place of balance, where wisdom and compassion meet, where understanding and practice merge, where philosophy becomes lived experience, where teaching becomes direct knowing. You are walking this path now, even as you rest, even as you prepare for sleep. Each breath is a step along the middle way. Each moment of awareness is right mindfulness. Each instance of self-compassion is loving kindness. Each acceptance of impermanence is equanimity. You are already doing this practice. You are already embodying this wisdom. There is nothing more you need to do, nowhere else you need to go, nothing you need to figure out or achieve or become. Simply rest here. Simply breathe here. Simply allow yourself to be held by these teachings, by this wisdom that has flowed like a river for 25 centuries, carrying countless beings toward peace, toward freedom, toward the deep rest that comes from understanding, from acceptance, from letting go. The waves lap at the shore, gentle and rhythmic, constant and kind. The breath flows in and out, requiring nothing from you, sustaining you effortlessly, moment by moment by moment. Everything is impermanent, everything is changing, and in that change, there is no threat, only freedom, only flow, only the natural rhythm of existence itself. Rest now in the middle way. Rest in balance, rest in wisdom, rest in compassion. Let everything be exactly as it is, and in that allowing, find the peace that has always been here. Waiting beneath the surface of seeking, beneath the agitation of grasping and aversion, beneath all the noise and striving and struggle. The peace is here. You are here. Rest now. Simply rest. Rest now. Simply rest. And as you rest, notice how all the teachings we have explored together begin to merge and dissolve, like streams flowing into a vast, calm ocean. There is no need to hold on to anything, no need to grasp at understanding or cling to concepts. The truth of impermanence includes even these teachings themselves. They arise, they serve their purpose, and now they can gently fade into the peaceful silence that underlies all things. You have walked with the Buddha from the palace to the forest, from confusion to clarity, from seeking to finding, and now the journey itself dissolves into simple presence, simple being, simple rest. Everything you have learned is already within you, woven into the fabric of your awareness like golden threads in a tapestry. You don't need to remember the words or recall the concepts. They have done their work quietly, softly, preparing the ground of your consciousness for this moment of deep relaxation and peace. Impermanence flows through everything, and this too is a kind of comfort. Nothing harsh can last, nothing painful is permanent, and even restlessness itself must eventually give way to stillness. Feel how your body settles more deeply with each breath, releasing tension with each exhalation, letting go of the day and all its demands. The middle way is here in this gentle balance between effort and surrender, between attention and release. You are not trying to achieve anything now, not striving toward any particular state. You are simply allowing yourself to be held by the present moment, cradled by awareness itself, supported by the ancient wisdom that has guided countless beings toward peace throughout the centuries. The Four Noble Truths are here too, quietly at work, acknowledging whatever remains of discomfort, understanding its transient nature, knowing that cessation is always possible, and recognizing that the path is simply this: being present, being kind, being at peace with what is. And what is right now is rest. What is right now is breath flowing in and flowing out. What is right now is the soft darkness behind your eyelids, the gentle weight of your body against the surface that supports you, the quiet hum of existence continuing on its way while you rest here, safe and still and peaceful. Everything changes, everything flows, and in this flowing there is no need for fear. Watch how thoughts arise in your mind like bubbles surfacing in still water. They appear, they shimmer for a moment in the light of awareness, and then they pop and disappear, leaving no trace. This is impermanence at its most intimate, most immediate. You don't need to follow the thoughts or push them away. Simply notice their arising and passing, their temporary nature, their inability to disturb the deeper stillness that you are. Feelings too arise and pass away, a flutter of emotion, a whisper of sensation, a momentary tightening or softening in the body. All of it flows, all of it changes, all of it belongs to the great river of impermanence that carries everything along without effort, without struggle, without resistance. And you can rest in this river, float in these gentle currents, knowing that you don't need to swim or steer or control the flow. The river knows where it's going. Life knows how to unfold. Your body knows how to release and relax and restore itself while you sleep. Trust in this natural wisdom, this biological intelligence, this ancient pattern of rest and renewal that has sustained living beings for millions of years. The Buddha understood this deeply, that we suffer most when we resist the flow, when we try to make permanent what must change, when we grasp at pleasure or push away pain. But in acceptance, there is tremendous peace, tremendous freedom. In allowing things to be as they are, in surrendering to impermanence rather than fighting against it, we discover that peace is not something we must create or achieve. It is simply what remains when we stop struggling. It is the natural state, the ground of being, the silence between the notes that makes the music possible. And right now, that silence is growing deeper, softer, more spacious. The space between your thoughts is widening. The pauses between your breaths are lengthening. Everything is slowing down, settling down, letting go. Your jaw is loose and heavy. Your shoulders have melted away from your ears. Your hands rest open and receptive, requiring nothing, holding on to nothing. Even your mind, that busy wanderer, is beginning to tire of its journey, ready now to come home to rest, to sink into the peaceful darkness of sleep, where no concepts are needed, where no understanding is required, where you can simply dissolve into pure being, pure presence, pure peace. Peace is here. Peace has always been here. Beneath the surface of every experience, beneath every thought and feeling and sensation, there is this unchanging peace, this fundamental okayness, this deep and abiding stillness that nothing can disturb. The waves may rise and fall on the surface of the ocean, but the depths remain calm and still and quiet. You are those depths. Your true nature is that stillness. And even though your daily life may bring turbulence and challenge, even though thoughts and emotions may stir the surface waters, the deep peace is always accessible, always waiting for your return. This is what the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree, not something new, not something he created or invented, but something that had always been there, waiting to be recognized. The awakening was simply a coming home, a remembering, a recognition of what is always and already true. And now, as you rest here in the darkness, as your breath becomes softer and slower and your body becomes heavier and more relaxed, you too are coming home to this fundamental peace. You are returning to your natural state, your original nature, the spacious awareness that has been witnessing your entire life without ever being touched or changed by any experience. This awareness is like the sky, vast and open and infinite, completely untroubled by the weather patterns that move through it. Clouds come and go, storms arise and pass, the sky remains. Thoughts come and go, emotions arise and pass, awareness remains. And you can rest as that awareness now, not trying to be aware, not making effort to stay present, but simply relaxing back into the natural witnessing that is happening all by itself, effortlessly, continuously, without any need for your involvement or control. Let the body breathe itself. Let the mind think itself, or not think, it doesn't matter. Let sleep come in its own time, in its own way, without hurrying or forcing or trying to make it happen. Everything unfolds according to its own nature, following the pathless path of the Dharma, the natural law that governs all arising and passing away. Impermanence takes care of wakefulness. It cannot last forever. Rest takes care of tiredness. It is the natural antidote, the organic balm, the healing darkness that restores and renews. Trust in this. Trust in the wisdom of your own body and mind. Trust in the ancient teachings that have guided you here to this moment of deep letting go, deep relaxation, deep peace. Softer now, slower now, everything settling into silence and stillness. The teachings dissolve like mist in morning sun. The concepts fade like footprints in sand. What remains is simply this: breathing, being, resting, in and out, rising and falling, appearing and disappearing, all of it flowing, all of it changing, all of it perfectly impermanent and therefore perfectly free. You are not holding on to anything, not clinging to any idea or image or understanding. You are simply here, simply present, simply allowing each moment to arrive and depart without interference, without judgment, without resistance. This is the practice and the perfection, the path and the destination, all merged into one seamless experience of being. The Buddha walked this earth teaching these truths for 45 years, and yet the essence can be felt in a single breath, understood in a single moment of letting go. Nothing complicated, nothing difficult, just this: the willingness to release, to soften, to accept what is. And what is right now is deep relaxation. What is right now is your body growing heavier and warmer, sinking into rest, preparing for sleep. What is right now is your mind growing quieter and dimmer, its thoughts becoming more distant, more dreamlike, less distinct. You are crossing the threshold now, moving from waking into sleeping, from effort into surrender, from the world of concepts into the wordless realm of deep rest. Let yourself cross over. Let yourself drift. There is nothing to fear in this letting go. It is the most natural thing in the world, practiced by every living being, every day, every night since the beginning of time. Sleep is a small death, the teachers say, a rehearsal for the great letting go. But it is also a return to the source, a dissolution back into the peaceful void from which all things emerge. You are safe here. You are held by the darkness, cradled by the night, supported by the earth beneath you and the centuries of wisdom that surround you. Countless beings have found peace through these teachings. Countless beings have rested in this understanding. And now you too rest here, breathing slowly, thinking less, feeling yourself dissolve into the soft, safe darkness of sleep. Rest, simply rest. Impermanence carries you now gently, softly into sleep, everything passing, everything flowing, nothing to hold, nothing to keep, just breathing, just being, just peace. The wisdom is here in the letting go, in the softness, in the surrender. You don't need to remember anything, don't need to understand anything, just rest in this moment, this breath, this soft, safe darkness. All the teachings becoming silence, all the words becoming space, all the seeking becoming stillness. The Buddha rests, the teachings rest, and you rest too, deeply, completely, peacefully, nothing more to do, nowhere to go, no one to be. Just this, just now, just rest. Breathing slowing, thoughts fading, body heavy and warm, mind quiet, heart peaceful, everything settling, everything impermanent, everything changing. And in that change, perfect freedom, perfect peace, perfect rest. Let go now completely. Sleep is here, sleep is coming, sleep is welcome. The darkness holds you, the night surrounds you, peace fills you. Nothing to resist, nothing to fear, only rest, only peace, only sleep. Softer, quieter, slower, deeper. Dissolving now into sleep, into peace, into the wordless wisdom that needs no understanding, the ancient peace, the eternal stillness. Here, now, always, rest, sleep, peace, breathing, fading, sleeping. Nothing more, just this, just peace, just rest. Sleep now, deeply, peacefully, completely. The teachings rest with you, the wisdom surrounds you. Peace is here, peace is here, peace, rest, sleep. Thank you for listening tonight. If this story helped you drift off, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more calming stories. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you next time.